some of them come to me via people that buy tax forfeited properties from Wayne County auction. The title insurance, they get a quitclaim deed from the treasurer, and they don't get title insurance. And so we have to do a FOIA. When people call me about that, I say, well, have you done a FOIA request? No, what's that? And I explain, you go online, you get the FOIA request. Then I review the FOIA request, then I do a full chain of title search, and determine whether or not, now the title company that I'm affiliated now, I should throw this out there, people think that you can't buy tax reverted property and get title insurance without acquiring title. It's not true. We can insure, provided that the person that bought the property didn't lease it back to the prior taxpayer and has owned the property from the auction for at least 2 years. And then, of course, provided that everyone that should have been served with the notice of the tax forfeiture were not necessarily in fact served. It's unlike civil litigation where you actually have to serve the people. You just, in the tax world, you just have to attempt to serve. Just, you send a certified letter and they don't pick it up or reject it, that's service. You drop it in the mail, that's service. So posting, you post it on the property, that's service. Unlike in civil litigation, you really, you have to get an order of substituted service, and you can't find the guy. I'm going through that right now with the guy. This poor couple came to me. They paid the man. He kept giving him a sob story. I mean, they're supposed to be paid in stages, right? They're building an addition on their house. So they paid him $47,000. He put up one wall. Now he skipped town. We can't find him. They're out $47,000. So, in those kind of scenarios, I said, geez, if you'd come to me, we would put your money in escrow. We would have doled it out. You have to bring in sworn statements and waivers. Have inspections as to the percentage of completion. That's what banks do. Banks always have to have enough money to draw down in case somebody walks on the job to finish the job. You can never, if the job is only 25% complete and you've given them 70% of your money, what do you do if he walks and you got to have somebody else finish the job? So that's how banks look at it too. So yeah, so quiet titles would be in the tax forfeiture area. How about a lot of people in Detroit? They die without a will and never probate the estate. So sometimes I can avoid quiet title by doing a probate. So you can get a probate order, putting the estate in title. So each case stands on its own facts. But I've done a lot of quiet titles, and the amazing thing about a quiet title is, even though there's no opposition, 9 times out of 10, that you got to make all this attempted services, and you got to wait 21 days for this and 21 days for that. It takes time. So if you're waiting to close a deal, you might wait, and you're waiting for the quiet title. It could take 6 months, 8 months. So what I recommend, if it's clear that you're going to get it, I recommend that the buyer take the exception. I call it an acceptable exception. But it's still incumbent upon the seller to go out and do the quiet title post-closing. So at least you get you close, the buyer gets title insurance, he's just got an exception in there, Joe Blow. So you got to get rid of Joe Blow with the quiet title action. Yeah.
So this has happened to more than one person in this room. I'll let the other person, if they want to say it happened to them. So I'm a lead generator, and I find a good deal on a house, and I give it to my partner who goes out, ties the house up wholesaler,
right,
and then we find a buyer, and it closes at a title company. Everything's great. We charge $10,000 assignment fee.
Right.
After the fact, it turns out that the person that sold the house didn't own the house. The
I
person
just did one for Mike Hagan. You know Mike?
Yeah, I know.
You know Mike?
The Russian guy, he's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the one that got me involved with.
I know what house it was. I think I sold it.
On purpose.
I think I said.
Yeah. So now.
Well, that's a clear title insurance claim.
Well,
I got his check like in 3 weeks.
That's wonderful, but now we're the wholesaler, and that same guy that we sold it to that has been frauded, now he wants his $10,000 back.
Oh, the 10
that we
grand.
had paid. So my question is, can I get title insurance for my 10 grand?
No.
No?
No.
Some title companies allow you to do that if you have it in the purchase agreement a certain way that, so if I get it under contract for 40,000 and I'm making 10, they could provide
They're pre-insured for 50.
yeah, you could get the title insurance, but you gotta do it a certain way, you gotta request it, and it costs a little more, not much, but it's, I think it's worth it, you know, just to be on the safe side.
Right.
You know, for the buyer, you know, whoever buys it.
If you got a big fee, you know, that's a.
And they don't necessarily pay you the, everybody thinks, well, I'm gonna get the cost, the full policy. If the property's actually worth, they pay you what your actual damages are. So if the property's only worth 45 and you've got $60,000 worth of insurance and you lose the property, they're not gonna pay you $60,000. They're gonna pay you the value of the property. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I've got a question along those lines. So I guess if you purchase a property for, let's say, $15,000, you get title insurance, and then you put $50,000 into it.
Right.
And then the house appreciates, so it's worth $100,000, and if something goes, you're only insured for the purchase price.
Right. So you have to bump that up.
So how do you bump it up? And
Yeah, just get an addendum. Insurance companies are happy to take your money. They'll give an addendum to the policy, increase the amount to include the improvements.
So it's up to the buyer to select the amount?
Right, they're the ones that are gonna get hurt.
Is it the same like rate as the first
Well, it's a
purchase price? I mean
No,
like
the title insurance rates, it's a function of, you know, it's so much like $5 1,000 for the first 50,000, and then $450 1,000 for the next 10,000. It's a whole, you know.
so it's a declining scale as the higher you go up.
Yeah, when you get up to $1 million, it drops down to like $1 1,000.
So I can request that they insure it. Say the purchase price is 50, and I plan to put in 50. I can insure it for what's the limit?
Well, you can insure it for fair market value.
All the way up to fair market value?
Fair market value.
At the time of complete rehab?
Yeah.
But even like, I guess, yeah. Okay, so like 2 years later though, if it appreciates double.
Now, like on your deal, on the flip,
Yeah.
let's see how this works. So your flip, you're signing the purchase agreement. But the transfer tax, the actual deed, there really should be, let's see how this works. Isn't the deed, so if you're buying it for 40 and selling it for 50, the seller's gonna pay the transfer tax. What are you putting on the deed? Are you putting 50,000 consideration on the deed, or?
What we're doing is just charging a fee for the assignment of the purchaser.
Yeah, but what's going on? The buyer, the ultimate buyer is paying 50 grand, right?
Yes.
So is his title insurance policy gonna be for 50 grand?
Yeah.
Or for, so the seller shouldn't have to pay the transfer tax on 50 grand, only on 40. And the buyer should be picking, you know what I'm saying? So there's
The buyer's gonna have to pay it's worth it for the buyer to pay extra.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say, which is kind of segues into what this gentleman is saying, so.
Yeah. Hey,
Because the seller's paying the transfer tax on that 15 grand, but anything over and above that, you would,
Okay.
I'm talking about transfer tax, so
Yeah,
like.
so what we got
Right.
is
Transfer
get
tax and there's,
the buyer to
premium.
pay it and give him the difference of whatever it costs. Yeah,
Oh.
that makes sense.
So what happened to the days where you got A to B and then D goes in escrow, and then B to C, and then C gets a loan, and C's lender pays off the A to B?
Yeah,
Is
we
that
do
going
that
on?
once in a while. We do that once in a while, but
As long as C's lender is full disclosure and they're aware that the property just sold, 30 days before that for, $50,000 less, when they might balk and say, wait a minute, then why are we insuring this for X amount of dollars if it's not only worth? So that's the whole area of mortgage fraud that went on in the 2008 and 9. A lot of that A to B, B to C and thing worked out.
well, we're doing more double closing. If we don't assign it, at the same day, we'll do A to B and get transactional funding to close it.
Yeah, like a hard money lender for the short term.
Exactly.
For 10 minutes and then
Yeah,
we go and do the
yeah.
B to C.
Yeah, we had a case that blew up on me when I had my title company. And I don't mind saying it because I know he's a big celebrity. Does anybody know Lomas Brown?
Yeah,
All right, so Lomas Brown, I mean, he sold his house to John Holmes, not the movie star, for $5 million. And the house was only worth $3 million, and John Holmes' income, which was only like $3 grand a month, was filled out for $30 grand a month or whatever it was. And that case was a nightmare. And went all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court. The lender, Bank of America, and the title company were fighting the underwriter. And Lomas Brown, you know, talk about celebrity status and how, you know, in today's world and how these celebrities getting away with stuff. His name doesn't appear anywhere. It's not mentioned anywhere as a wrongdoer. He had to know his trainer can't afford to buy a $3 million house and that sold for $5 million. So it was overappraised. His earnings were screwed up. So there's a lot of ugly stuff that went on back in those days. But
He has stated income. It's back. He has stated income numbers.
yeah, back then the lenders, as long as you could, you know, frost a mirror, they'd make you a loan, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other issues? Yeah.
I got a question regarding the foreclosure, about getting a redemption deed from the owner. Are you familiar?
You mean during
with-
their? Yeah, I've got one of those right now in Charlotte County. It was $1 million home. During the redemption period, my guy bought at the sheriff's sale. It's really a convoluted deal. There was a first mortgage and a second mortgage. He didn't know there were two mortgages, so he went out there to bid on the first mortgage, and he was actually bidding on the second mortgage, which was already wiped out by the first mortgage. But then he got stuck for $120,001. He bid $1 more than the credit bid. And then 2 weeks later, he went and bought the first mortgage for $1 million. But then he went the redemption rights he was concerned about because he wanted to get going on this. So he did what you're talking about. I got a quitclaim deed and an assignment of. When I do it, I do two things. I get a quitclaim deed and an assignment of redemption rights. Two instruments, not just a quitclaim deed.
Okay.
So it's clear.
Yeah, I do what my title company requires. It's like a quitclaim deed, a redemption deed type of deal.
Yeah.
And there's like 5 other documents that they want them to sign that probably explains a lot of that, you know, that what they're doing and things like that.
Right. That they've had legal advice and.
Yeah. But let's say an investor buys it at the auction for $1 over.
You're talking about tax auction?
Foreclosure auction.
You mean
Mortgage
sheriff's
auction.
sale on
Yeah.
a mortgage?
Yeah.
That's not an auction. That's
Yeah, well.
unless you're talking about an auction company.
No, I'm talking about the weekly auction. I go to it
Sheriff's
every week.
He's going to the actual sheriff's
I
sale
go
in
to
the
the
county.
sheriff's sale.
Yeah, I never think of that in terms of an auction. I just sheriff's sale. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, well, they auction the properties off, but anyway, so an investor buys it for $1 over,
It's a bit, yeah,
and
credit bid.
there's a 6-month redemption period. And I'm already talking to the owner, and I offer him money to get the deed, okay?
Right, keys for, cash for keys.
Cash for keys type deal.
Yeah,
So the investor, there's a designee fee that they do, an affidavit of purchaser, where this one investor is charging $3,500 to, if I had to go pay him off, you know, to do a payoff. He puts in there $3,500, which thank goodness they just changed some law where that fee only could be $250 now. They finally changed it. But, so my title companies are having, we can figure out the payoffs ourselves, but if I'm gonna sell it during the redemption period, I need something from my title company, because Wayne County won't provide the payoff letter. They used to, but they don't anymore.
right, yeah, you have to rely on that affidavit. I got a case going right now. This is interesting. Pakistani fellow. So he has a first mortgage and a second mortgage with Chemical Bank. So the second mortgage was only like $45,000. The first mortgage was $950,000. So when he went to redeem on the second mortgage, he brought him a check for like $45,000 in interest and stuff. The affidavit that was filed by the lender was changed. They filed a second affidavit saying that they had paid off the first mortgage of $950,000 to protect their interest. So the payoff on his second mortgage for $45,000 was now like $1 million. So he was going to lose his house in 1 week, and I got an injunction from the court. I got it because the $950,000. Yes, the law allows you to do that, but what happened was the bank, when First Franklin Bank was bought by First Choice or whatever, it ends up in Chemical Bank. So it started out as a Franklin Bank loan. So he had a construction loan that converted to a permanent loan, so his interest rate dropped from like 12.75% down to like 4%. And he was making payments of like $2,000 a month on his interest-only loan. And then when Chemical Bank took over, they treated it like it was a construction loan. So they bumped his interest, so his payments went from like $2,000 a month to like $6,000 a month. And he couldn't afford to pay that. So I got it all, so now he's kind of living rent-free while I'm litigating it, because that affidavit increasing the payoff on the second mortgage, that $950 wasn't correct because he didn't owe $950, he owed maybe $900 or something, because they were using the old interest rate instead of the reduced interest rate. So I've got some good arguments there. But and again, it's expensive litigation. But he's living there rent free because he's not paying any mortgage payments of $5,000 to $6,000 a month while this is going on. Maybe you have to catch up with it later, but maybe they'll refinance him at 2% rate or something to give him a deal. I don't know how that's going to shake out. Tune in later. I'll let you know what happens. Okay. Anything else?
What's the latest on land contracts now? I keep hearing that.
What about land contracts?
How we can do them? You know, they changed the rules, but we can't do them, it's flip and flop in a few different ways. So I just don't know the most recent.
I did on a land contract today, and I don't know if you ever heard of the expression on which I used in this case that I just told you about the Pakistani fellow. The law abhors the clogging of the equity of redemption. So what happened in that case is he was waiting for them to foreclose on his first mortgage because he needed time to get his FICO score up and everything. So they kind of did an end run and didn't have to foreclose on the first mortgage because they bought it and tacked it onto his second mortgage. Okay, so what I did today is a guy selling on land contract, and he's worried about how long it's going to take to before he can get possession back if the guy defaults on a land contract. So I did something that's probably clogging the equity of redemption. I did what's known as a quitclaim deed in lieu of forfeiture, and I did an assignment of the land contract purchaser's interest back to the seller, and that's being held in escrow. So if he defaults on his land contract, I'm authorized to do that and avoid, summary proceedings for. But and I told my client this. I said if he challenges it, a judge might set it aside. But if no one complains and you do that, and fine, you don't have to go through the summary disposition to summary proceedings to get rid of a land contract vendee that defaults. I don't know if that answers your question. I hope you learned something today. I was surprised that 9/10 of the room thought that I won the case. I must have a nice presence, and kudos to them for thinking that, but the one guy got it right. I lost. Can't win them all.
So tell me a little bit, what was the class basically all about?
So my class was the highlights of the Seller's Disclosure Act of 1993, and then a case study where I represented a home buyer that sued the seller and ultimately lost.